This is Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum.
Well, when you're selling, you got to know who your buyer is and you got to know how to market to them. I do.
And Dan Keller, mortgage expert with New American Funding.
Hey, rates are important, but strategy matters more than ever.
For the next hour, you'll learn impactful insider information as Christian and Dan teach about the ins and outs of Seattle's real estate market. Now, here's Christian and Dan.
Hello, and welcome to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM. This is going to be a fun show today. We have Mr. Dan Keller, and we're also going to be talking about, all about traffic today and how traffic can affect home prices and how light rail can affect home prices as well. So it's going to be an interesting show. We got WSDOT coming on the air in our second and third segments, so stay tuned. That's going to be fun. And yeah, so Mr. Dan Keller, how you doing?
I'm doing really well.
You're doing well. Good.
You guys on video just watched me walk in the door.
Yeah, Dan's been saving the day on one of our clients' loans, and he's just jumping in.
Sleeves rolled up, ready to rock and roll. What time? Is it 5 o'clock yet? Oh, we're good to go.
I think there's a song about that.
I think somewhere
Just a few country songs about that, actually.
Got some work to do here, though. No, it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, so last week we had David Smith of Square Box Designs, who he is basically an interior designer. And he gave us some really good tips, so I wanted to just kind of go over those real quick, get into the show, and yeah. So he said what you should really be focusing your money on when you're designing your home is spend the majority of your budget on quality big items like couches, tables, and things like that. Some big things. Don't mess with spending a bunch of money on accessories like pillows and I don't know, table runners and lamps and things like that. Those are all things that you can actually down the road, and as the seasons change, you can actually swap those out. So over Christmas or whatever holiday, you put on some different pillows on your couch. But the main focus should be on the big items, which makes common sense. But I don't think a lot of people pay attention to that when they're in the midst of doing those types of projects. So, yeah, I thought that was a really good tip, and I always want to throw those tips out from our previous guests that are kind of experts in their field. So yeah, so it was great having David Smith on last week. So some interesting news came out from the Census Bureau this last week. I don't know if you saw this or not, Dan, but they said that new homes, they're getting larger, and that's weird because families are starting to get smaller, but homes are getting bigger. And they're also saying new homes are more expensive, and part of the reason why is because they're bigger. They're building bigger homes, so obviously that costs more. And the way that they're building these bigger homes is that in a lot of spots, a lot of cities, they're actually moving out to more the suburban rural areas where they have more land. Therefore, they can build a bigger house.
Wow.
Kind of makes sense. And then the third thing, the wealthy are driving up the new house market. And so builders are, going after them, and they're going, okay, well, the wealthy want that bigger home, and that's what they're craving. So that's why that's happening.
Yeah, that seems like a little bit of a shift from a few years ago where it was all smaller, more green, tighter living spaces.
Yeah.
You know what I'm seeing a lot of right now is tearing down an older house. Jenny and I actually went to dinner the other night at one of her friend's house. Beautiful home in Edmonds. You would not expect this mansion, if you will. Beautiful residence. And that's what it was. It was like a 1900 home that they tore down, bought the lot next door, and basically did that. So you're seeing some creative things going on right now, but home size is increasing.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think that's, as far as Seattle goes, I think that's more of a rural thing.
Yeah.
It's more suburban.
We did the opposite in 2013. We actually built down. So we've been to our house.
Yeah.
pretty much 100% of the space is usable.
Yeah,
There's not a wasted closet.
Nope. No.
So we actually did the opposite. We had a home in a community that we moved from, and when we custom built our house, we actually built it a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
I guess it leaves room to add on, but for now, that's kind of crazy. That's a trend right now.
Yeah, and
cool.
I think in Seattle, though, in the heart of Seattle, I think it's actually probably the opposite of what the Census Bureau is saying for most of the country, maybe. I think a lot of people in Seattle are still doing the smaller, more minimal, closer in living where you don't have to deal with traffic, which is a perfect segue for what we're going to be talking about today. And that's, we're getting WSDOT on, the Washington State Department of Transportation, having one of their representatives come on today because traffic is not fun. And we are pretty dang lucky, in my opinion, to have such a good team on top of it in terms of their social media presence and stuff like that.
Twitter. It's funny watching them on Twitter.
They're hilarious.
They
are hilarious. So, and they do a great job of alerting the public to what's going on and where traffic problems are going to happen. And if something big's happening, they do a really good job of getting the word out so that people can prepare ahead of time. Hey, you might want to work from home over the next few days because XYZ is happening, or the president's in town, or whatever's happening. And it seems like us in Seattle, we already hate traffic so much that people actually listen.
Yeah.
And So
or if you're not used to, so my wife's not used to coming downtown Seattle, and she did a workshop a couple weeks ago in Ballard. She called me a couple of times after the workshop. Going, are you serious? It's taken me an hour and a half to get from downtown Ballard to 520. Well, she ended up taking the bridge across to Kirkland. Yeah. And she was like, I'm pulling my hair out.
Yeah. No, so, exactly. And that kind of also segues into, I think we're going to talk about this a little more when we have Mark on the air. Yeah. But how some neighborhoods going east-west, and I've talked about it numerous times in previous shows, going east-west in some Seattle neighborhoods, that can take way longer going a short distance than it can going north-south. We just don't have major roads going east-west, which is part of the reason why I'm such a proponent of light rail or a light rail line going from Ballard to UW or wherever, doing that east-west.
Yeah, you're right, because everything's north-south, right?
Everything's north-south. We have nothing going east-west. There's a bunch of smaller roads, 45th, Market, 50th, 65th, 75th, 80th, 85th. But they're all just normal roads. There's nothing, the lights aren't lined up. There's nothing going on to make it go smooth. So it just takes forever. So,
I'm excited to learn a little today.
I know. It's going to be a fun one. So let's, I think it's time for this.
Welcome to this week's Seattle Real Estate Minute with Christian Nossum.
It's fun having actual sound effects.
I'm actually looking forward to this because I've heard a lot. I'm curious to see what you have to say right now.
Yeah,
I'm reading a lot.
I know, and this is. I've been preaching this for a while.
Yeah.
I am not a newcomer to this topic.
Yep.
So what I'm going to talk about today, hello people on camera, is light rail stations being close or living close to light rail stations. And if you know me at all, and if you want to Google me, you can read articles that I've written for curb.com, for all sorts of different websites, preaching the same exact thing. It's no secret I'm a believer in this. Buying homes and living near a light rail station hugely impacts your house price. Makes a big, big difference. Not only does it make a big difference for your actual lifestyle and your commute time, but it also increases your home price. Wow. So a study came out, estately.com, who I love, they came out with a study showing a whole bunch of, basically they went up and down the light rail line, and they said, okay, well, if you live near this station, your home, it actually costs this much more to live near this station than it does just outside of that station boundary. So when they're talking station boundaries, usually they're referring to about a quarter mile, which is a 5-minute walk of the station. So Capitol Hill prices are $35,000 higher near the station. On Beacon Hill, the cost increase is close to $60,000 higher. Wow. And the Pioneer Square station, that's $78,000 higher. So how much is it kind of worth? And I've been, again, I've been a huge proponent of the Beacon Hill station. I actually own a couple houses near there that I've sold since, but I got a good return on my investment by buying there. And it was just so many reasons why it makes sense. And I think with another stat that I heard that was coming out, I think it was the Census Bureau that may have said this too, that we have another 600,000 to 700,000 people expected to move into the Seattle area. I don't even remember. It was Seattle Times, the producer, is telling me. Do you know how many years it was supposed to be? The next 5 years.
Okay.
600,000 to 700,000 more people.
Goodness sake, yeah.
How bad's traffic going to get when that happens?
Yeah.
How much more valuable is living near a light rail line going to be?
Yeah. I was meeting with one of your clients the other day, and Amazon clients, and they were telling me, I just asked them, I said, hey, as far as growth, and they're like, we actually get reports every single month, and it's kind of leveled off, but they're still high, leveled off, meaning it's just not exponentially,
increasing
skyrocketing.
nonstop. Yeah.
And that was one of the things that we were talking about is, and obviously you're showing them condos and everything, but traffic, huge concern.
Oh yeah.
And so
as it should be.
Yep. It's going to be, it's playing into where they're buying and what they're buying. But they're going to, he was saying the opposite, that they're slowing down. So I was going to ask you, I was like, but then you say that, you mentioned that stat. That's not slowing down.
No.
Maybe Amazon might be slowing down, but people coming to the Northwest.
Yep.
Oh, and he had mentioned something about Boston and certain area, Denver, Colorado, and other areas being more attractive than Seattle, because for a while Seattle was it. And I was like, I'd like to verify the article that you might have read or the news. But I said, as far as I know, Seattle's pretty hot.
Yeah.
But I was going to run that by you and maybe talk about it on the show. I know we're running out of time during the segment, but those are very interesting stats.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that if you're going to think about buying a house or an investment property, think long term, plan ahead. Go, okay, well, I can get the same house for the same price next to a light rail station versus not next to a light rail station. Every single time you should choose the one near a light rail station. Or even if it's just a few grand more to buy now near a light rail station, down the road it's going to be worth much more.
Or working with a guy like you that understands those stats, those 5-year stats.
Exactly.
So
and that's the stuff that I'm always paying attention to.
Yeah.
So, all right, so stay tuned. After the break, we are going to be back with Mark Leth, who is the Assistant Region Administrator of Traffic Ops at WSDOT. So stay tuned for more Seattle Real Estate Radio.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM Business Radio. We are joined today with I can't talk apparently. With Mark Leth. He is the Assistant Region Administrator of Traffic Operations at Washington State Department of Transportation, otherwise known as WSDOT, which is much easier for me to say because apparently I can't talk right now. So, Mark, thank you very much for coming on the air and spending your time with us today.
Sure. Good afternoon.
Yeah, and he is actually coming to us on the phone. A lot of times every other guest comes in, but he's such a bigwig, he doesn't have the time to drive up to Seattle to. So
I'm sure that's what it is.
Yes, exactly. That's what we're going to pretend it is. That's what we're going to tell everybody that it is. You're a bigwig. That's the deal. So, so just so that people are clear what WSDOT is, they are the organization that designs, operates, and maintains the regional freeway system and large portions of the arterial highways that are outside of the larger city boundaries. And Mark has been with WSDOT for just a little while, 30 years, and most of those years were working in traffic engineering and operations. So again, thank you very much for coming on today, Mark. We appreciate it, and hopefully a lot of people will learn some stuff today. So first, Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what WSDOT does for those of our listeners who aren't too familiar with it?
Okay, you touched on that a little bit, but we're essentially the stewards of the freeway and highway system in the state of Washington. That includes the ferry system. We have involvement with the aviation system in the state and actually manage several smaller airports. But people best know us from the freeway system statewide, and much of the highway system we're directly responsible for. Other portions of the highway system in the larger cities, the larger cities take the lead, but we still have oversight responsibilities. So we anywhere from planning through operations and maintenance and preservation of the system. That's what we're all about, and safety is by far our number one priority over everything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you guys do a great job with your social media presence, especially your Twitter feeds. And I mean, a couple weeks ago when it was Pride weekend, we had a Mariners game, or Mariner games, I should say. We had the president in town. We had Sounders game. We had the Pride Parade, in addition to all the other activities going on with that. And you guys had whoever was the genius that came up with the, I don't even know, it looked like Microsoft Paint drawing on top of a map of Seattle showing all the things going on. That was just hilarious. And I saw numerous people commenting on that are friends of mine on Facebook and Twitter, and just saying how well the artwork was done on that. So do we get to give you credit on that, or was that someone else that drew that fine, fine artistic work?
I am definitely not that good of an artist, but part of our communication staff that work really hard to mix it up, to keep people's interest, because weekends, like you just mentioned, particularly during the summer months around here, it just seems like a blur. It never lets up.
Yep.
There's plenty of special events. There's sports events. There's everybody traveling through the area, and everybody else in the country wants to come to Seattle to check it out during our best weather months. And so I thought that was a great idea. Get the point across. It captured people's attention, and that's really what we're trying to do with the social media side.
Yeah, you guys got a ton of engagement on that post, and it was all good, positive stuff, too. And I also got to say, and I kind of talked about this in the first segment before we brought you on, you guys do a great job of prepping people in advance of major closures or big events happening, and it really does seem to help. For some reason, it must just be that people in Seattle hate traffic so much that if they have any excuse to be able to work from home, they're going to take it. Because anytime you guys say, hey, next week's going to suck because of we're closing down, or we're repairing this, or we're doing whatever, the president's coming in, or whatever the reason, people actually listen. And the only reason that they listen is because you guys are there to tell us about it. So good job on that. I appreciate that, because it makes my job easier, because for some reason people still want to go look at homes even though the president's in town. So I'm still driving around.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate people listening. Again, the challenge is to get people's attention, and we realize that there's just constant activity around here, and really is the key to get the information out early and often. And we need our media partners in particular to pound away on it too. Can't do it alone.
Mm-hmm. And I think they do a good job of helping out with that. And it's you guys do a better job. I know I talk to people that are real estate agents across the country, and that also have cities that have bad traffic, and they don't talk about how fun their Department of Transportation is with social media or anything like that. So I'm sure you guys are near the top on that. So a lot of people complain about traffic in Seattle, and rightfully so. Traffic sucks, and there's no getting around that. But you guys are here to relieve and minimize congestion. And what are some of the ways that you guys try to do that?
Well, we've already touched on one of the big ones, which is the communication part.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's just ongoing day-to-day recurrent traffic, as well as all the events and construction activities and everything else, incidents that affect traffic. So that's a big part of what we do. Beyond that is trying to maintain the roadway when our maintenance forces can actually get out there, which unfortunately we're forced to more and more night work because there's so much traffic during the day, and that poses challenges. But to try to keep things as operable as possible, we have a pretty aging system out there, as far as not just the pavement, but all the devices out there. And if you rust on numerous devices, and it's trying to keep that going. But beyond that, the operations side, messaging in the field with variable message signs and changeable message signs. We use a pretty extensive ramp metering system in this region that's well known nationally and internationally for how effective it is. Try to make low-cost, practical solutions where we can get them in. But the larger part of our program is legislative directive projects that take a little bit longer to build, and some add capacity, some are more safety projects. There's a mix of those. But coordinating with other agencies, because we're not the only operator, we're not the transit agencies, so working with them to try to make, particularly where we can affect it more, the rubber-tired transit, the buses, work as effectively as possible. And really the key is we can't make the congestion go away. I don't think that's going to happen. But reliability, whether it's for transit systems or for the public, that as much as possible they can count on a reasonably reliable trip so they can plan ahead. That's our focus in what we do.
Yeah. So we were talking about light rail right before you came on, and I'm kind of curious to know if you have any sort of insight, or I don't know if you actually have stats on it or if it's just a feel, but have you guys seen changes to congestion since the light rail opened, and especially since the Capitol Hill and the UW station opened, which are obviously we're going a little more north at this point. Has there been any sort of noticeable change at all?
It's difficult with some of these types of changes in the system, particularly over a longer period of time where congestion levels change, particularly with the economy going up and down, which is a big factor. The light rail, and I'll add to it the Sounder
That's a good
service
point.
to the south that was implemented a few years ago. I think from what I recall, I don't have the stats in front of me, that we saw some amount of changes in behavior. Did it make congestion go away? Certainly not.
No, but it minimized it probably.
It helped.
Yeah.
As far as the more recent implementation of Capitol Hill and UW service, it's too early to tell and to compare to previous traffic conditions to really know what's going on. Just anecdotally, which everybody's heard and I've experienced riding it a few times, it's a very busy route. There's a lot of people using it. So I think that type of information and back to reliability is very important to a lot of people, even if it's not necessarily the fastest trip, but they can rely on getting in on point A and going to point B, that it's going to be the same time from day to day.
And I think it's 7.5 or 8 minutes from UW to downtown or something like that.
Pretty darn quick.
Yeah,
and comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you could make that drive on a normal day in that amount of time. So
yeah, and that's a very challenging portion of the freeway system, the most challenging portion we have between I-90 and 520, and so any number of trips, and not just in the peak periods, but on the edges of the peaks and weekends, any amount that we can get off of the freeway and out of vehicles during those times. If people can do that, and not everybody can, all the better. Yeah.
So 520, you brought that up, and I know that's obviously that's a major roadway, and just recently I think it was right over the beginning of April is when the new 520 bridge opened. Is that right? It was right over April, or
essentially the same time as the UW light rail. So all that happened.
Yeah. So, and I know they haven't finished it completely because most of the bridge is there, but I don't even know what you call the other part that goes through kind of the Montlake neighborhood. Do we have any sort of idea? Are you able to kind of give people a heads up on when that's supposed to be completed?
So what's under construction right now continues until summer of 2017. And
so another year.
That kind of extends the bridge work closer to east of Montlake. And then the next phases kick in, I believe, and this is, there's plenty of information like this on our website, and I'm not part of the day-to-day project team, but you can find all this information on there. There's all kinds of interesting information. But I think 2018 is when construction starts for the next phase, which includes the Montlake vicinity, essentially,
Got it.
and connecting that the bridge to the east on the southern portion of it to Montlake, and then it continues on, and the program ultimately doesn't get completed until the mid-2020s when it's connected to I-5. There's still some very challenging work like the Portage Bay Bridge, which is way up in the air, and more to come, but it's all funded, and they'll keep marching along. But having the new bridge in place is a nice step and a nice milestone.
And I got to say, that bridge is so smooth.
Yeah.
It's so quiet and smooth. So, Mark, we're going to keep you on the line. We got to take a quick commercial break, but we're going to come back in just about 30 seconds, a minute, after a couple words from our sponsor. So stay tuned for more Seattle Real Estate Radio after the break.
We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM. We are back with Mark Leth. I don't know why I can't say with today.
You're
I'm
looking at
saying
his
Wick.
last name.
Yeah, that
I
must
was
be
doing
what
the
it
same.
is.
I was doing the same.
So Mark Leth is our traffic. We're going to bring you in every week now, Mark, just letting you know. You're a new host of Seattle Real Estate Radio. You didn't know this until today, but no, I'm just joking. But you're going to be our traffic expert, at least for today, from WSDOT. And we're just going to continue our conversation about how Seattle traffic's going now and in the future. And then maybe while Mark's on the air, or maybe in the next segment, we're going to go over how that relates to home prices as well. We're going to bring it all full circle. So definitely stay tuned for this segment and then the next one as well, because it's going to be good. We're going to bring it all around. So Dan, got some questions here.
Mark, I'm in it every single day. So my wife and I, we live up north, and I commute to Kirkland, and then I commute to across the bridge to
520.
Seattle. Yeah, and so certainly follow y'all on Twitter. And or half the time it's Christian giving me a text or a heads up.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm out there all day,
You're
every
in
day.
it. Yeah,
showing
every
clients' houses and whatnot. So, yeah.
Somebody should have told me yesterday, though, about the farmer's market down on Terry Ave, because that was a nightmare, and I had no idea.
Oh, well.
And evidently it's going to happen every week from
It's that's more Seattle,
that's
not
downtown.
Washington.
That's it.
I'm a bit disconnected from that.
Exactly.
Can't help me there.
No.
Hey, so tell me a little about, or tell us a little about the know before you go, and other ways travelers can estimate or avoid traffic.
Yeah, again, it's the same theme we've been beating on here today and what we do every day. It's communication, and the quicker we get that out and more in advance of significant events, the better for travelers. But there's plenty of different types of information on our website and elsewhere. Ours is pretty easy to access. It's just WSDOT.com /traffic, and you can go in there and choose a freeway route from point A to point B, and it'll give you a time that you want to travel, and it'll give you a predictive travel time, not only for an average day, but it'll also give you what we call a reliable day, which it's not guaranteed, but more often than not, even when those more significant events happen, you'll make it there on time. So it's a longer period of time than an average, but all kinds of information on construction projects and impacts coming up, and the special events, and other cities have this. This information goes out to private entities, not just the media, but others that push this information out, and the more the merrier as far as we're concerned. Anybody that's putting this information out, as long as it's accurate, it's great. Yeah,
and a big part of that is your Twitter handle. So, for our listeners, if you go over to Twitter, it's WSDOT, WSDOT _traffic. So, that is a great.
And you guys have multiple Twitter handles depending on, there's the passes one, there's just the essential DOT, just straight up at WSDOT. There's Tacoma, there's Good to Go, there's all sorts of them. Do you have a ferry one as well, or is that something different altogether?
Yes, they have one too. So you can get to all those through our website. But major projects, they usually set up a Twitter feed and a Facebook feed, and again, any way we can get that information out is good stuff.
Well, maybe you can add some commentary to this. So rush hour, is it just me, or is rush hour kind of moving up these days?
What is rush hour?
What is rush hour? Yeah.
It's not just you.
Okay.
And every time the region gets busier, and we're certainly in that economic boom time, and coming out of the recession, it just makes it even more dramatic for everybody. But starting pretty much late 2013, 2014, it really started to increase in terms of congestion again, and it hasn't slowed down much. And so yes, it's the congested period, that what we would consider the commute periods, have spread out more. People that can do it, they're leaving earlier or later in the day, depending on where they're traveling, and that's what happens because they don't want to be stuck in the middle of the peak. And so we're really, when we look at congested or commute hours these days in this region, it's really 5-hour commute hours, AM and PM. So it's 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. And there's certainly spot congestion along the freeways and local streets, other hours of the day, and certainly on weekends too.
Yeah, I was going to say 2:30. I used to be A-OK leaving Kirkland at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and now it's like, well, and this just may be, and I don't want to get off track here, but the toll lanes, I don't know if that's caused a little bit of congestion, but just in the last year, it's just been a little bit more congested earlier in the day, especially over there on 405.
Yeah, well, we were really seeing it in 2014, and I-5 really exploded. And I think you mentioned you're coming from the north end, so that I-5 commute from the north end down into Seattle, transit agencies, community transit, saw a big increase in travel time, even in the HOV lane over that year and beyond. And there's certainly a lot of people out there.
So what do you know about the viaduct, and how long will it be between when the viaduct is torn down and the new tunnel that Bertha is digging will be open?
Bertha. So again, this is one of our major projects. So there's a huge project team, mostly contractors and consultants working this, and I'm not involved day to day, but it's a design build project. So the contractor owns the project, including the schedule. So that I haven't seen anything more recent as far as what their intended schedule is, but they're obviously working on it. Bertha's about a third of the way through in terms of the distance that she needs to tunnel, and so that schedule, when they pin it down further, it's not just the rate that the tunnel machine's working, but it's also the maintenance stops, which I believe they're on one right now.
Yeah, they got to replace and sharpen the blades and all that fun stuff. Yeah,
to make sure it gets there. And so after the tunneling's complete, there's still another year and a half or so of finishing up the roadway before it's open. So we're a ways out still. But I'm sorry, I don't have anything more specific since it's really on the design build contractor.
Yeah, no, it's a conversation that comes up often.
Yeah, and I'm the reason that I wanted to ask that question, because if you weren't, I was going to, Dan. Is I could see how, again, I'm always bringing this back to real estate, so I could see how that could have an impact on home prices in West Seattle, because once that viaduct is torn down, getting into downtown from West Seattle is just going to get worse. And I could see that depending on if it's a prolonged delay or gap between when the viaduct's torn down and the tunnel's done and open, and it's just surface streets going through there, I could see potentially a decrease or maybe not an increase in home prices over in West Seattle, because it's not going to be as desirable because of traffic. So
yeah. Certainly, the intent is that the tunnel is now done and open before the viaduct comes down. So that's the goal, and that's what that's always been the plan. The local street work that happens after that comes after that work, so it's a little further along. But it is moving along, and we realize it is a vital link to downtown from West Seattle in particular.
Yeah.
So, Mark, in your opinion, in the next, let's just say 5 to 10 years, what's your opinion on what traffic will look like on I-5?
Well, I'll caveat it with the economy again. if it keeps booming, it keeps getting more congested in the near term. 5 years out, we'll have Link Light Rail to Northgate on I-5, not just in the Seattle area. It's pretty busy down in Pierce County and the Tacoma area. They're working on an HOV project right now that I think extends from M Street to Portland Avenue. That'll be done. So there are some
Seems like that's been going on for like 15 years.
Yeah, well, it's many times it's how it's funded and phased. We don't have a lot of control over that, and they're all difficult to squeeze in and keep things moving.
Oh yeah.
Beyond that, I think as far as 5 years and beyond, it's more and more innovation of people figuring out how to work around this, whether it's the more simplistic just telecommuting or it's on-demand carpooling and van pooling and I think I've heard the term Uber pools.
Uber pool, yep.
All these other things and ideas, and they'll continue. And so how can we're a tech savvy region, right? And so how does that come into play even more to add to what we already have out there, the menu of information and some options at this point.
Yeah, well,
but there's nothing. Our core work on I-5 and not downtown in the next couple of years at least is just rehabilitating the pavement that's fallen apart. It's well beyond its useful life, and we patch it as we go, and so it's trying to make an attempt at catching up with that for what we funded.
Two things as we wrap up. You mentioned, we're a tech-savvy region. Speaking of tech then, have you seen any impacts with the use of GPS apps like Waze or Google Maps?
I can't say I can pin it down for sure, but our traffic management center, they pay attention to all those things when incidents are going on. And I got to believe, and I think we've been fairly confident in some instances that are not in the core urban area, but a little further out when an incident event occurs and how fast people react to it. They may not all be tapped into us. And again, however they're getting that information, great. I guess the downside for communities with Waze maybe is people taking shortcuts through areas that aren't really intended for a lot of traffic. And that's the dilemma with more and more information. But I certainly think not just our information, but what Google puts out and Waze and others, and as that gets even more significant in saturation, that people use all those tools, and they're still listening to the radio too.
Yeah. So here in the last 45 seconds, Mark, this is something I really wanted to ask you. Is there anything that we're doing here in the Northwest that is kind of leading the way in regards to traffic, or is there anything that maybe another city in the U.S. or in the world are doing that we may be looking to copy?
There's a little curveball.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. There you go.
Former baseball player, Dan, throwing the big curve.
So I mentioned ramp metering already. Yeah. We're well known for how our system works and how adaptive it is and has been for years. But in terms of what other cities are doing and what we're looking at more, and there's the good and the bad with it, is making use of every inch of space we have on the roadways, and so that gets into using shoulders for part-time travel lanes, which comes with operational overlays and how do you maintain it and everything else. So there's more and more of that work going on.
All right. Good. Well, thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate you.
We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM Business Radio. We are here with Mr. Dan Keller. Why don't you tell us your MLO number, Dan?
We do. We got to cover those bases. MLO number 115349. I'm a mortgage advisor at New American Funding and the co-host of Seattle Real Estate Radio with Seattle Real Estate broker Christian Nossum.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is me. So we're also Facebook Live in it right now.
We're Facebook Live in it.
Boom.
Yeah. This is a big topic. Yeah.
Here, hold on one second.
Welcome to this week's Mortgage Minute with Dan Keller.
The announcer guy saying welcome.
Well, for you Facebook Livers, Christian and his sound bites.
I got a nice fun soundboard over here. You can't hear it, but it's
Yeah.
fun. Anyway, so Dan,
Yeah.
let's talk Brexit because
Big
that's
news.
big
Yeah.
big news.
Big news, and that's why we're spending a good segment on this today. So if you haven't heard, I don't know where you've been, but it's all over the internet. Here, basically what I did last week, it was sitting around the house. Jenny was doing something in the kitchen, and I was like, oh, geez. And she was like, what's going on? And I said, we're about to good things are probably going to happen with mortgage rates. And she was like, well, that's always good. So I put together a screenshot of what the market had done that day and threw something out on Facebook and basically said, there's some news brewing over in Europe right now. I'm curious to see how the markets, how the markets are going to open the next day.
Yeah.
And we opened up, this probably means next to nothing to most of our listeners, but the bond market opened up almost 80 basis points just overnight. So, which is good for mortgage rates. And it's continued to improve since then. And now you got every marketing company in America, every bank in America offering, rates have dropped. Now's a great time. Here's the thing though. Rates dropped a little. I think rates dropped initially from a knee-jerk reaction to what happened. I'm telling my clients right now is a great opportunity to take advantage of a unique opportunity because rates could very well go back up. They dropped. I think we're going to see, once the dust settles over in the next, let's say 4 to 12 weeks, even maybe longer than that, really the big impact of what happened.
Interesting.
Yeah, with Britain.
So you're thinking this initial knee-jerk reaction is actually going to get, in terms of interest rates, potentially it's going to change even more in how long? 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, but what have I been saying for the last year? Our economy is just not ready for higher interest rates. It's regardless of what the Democrats or the Republicans or whoever says, the economy is not ready for higher interest rates, and it's certainly not thriving. And so basically what I wanted to talk about today is, what's really funny is it turns out that pretty much everyone's supporting what Britain did, except for a couple, the Scots, and obviously the European Union. So, but hey, listen. So the economic reports are continuing to come in low. Combined with this news, let me just give you kind of a before and after what it actually means for mortgage rates and home affordability. Okay. So if you had locked your loan the day before the Brexit news happened, and let's just say all things even, all things considered, 20% down, great credit, all that good stuff. You probably locked in a 3.875 30-year fixed rate loan. Let's just not even talk about points. Let's just say 3.875. Yep. After the news, it's probably 3.625. So it's not this whole half a point,
not a
this
huge
frenzy.
difference.
No, but it's an improvement. And it's an improvement that's brought us down into the healthy 3% range. So my message to home buyers, my message to homeowners, this is a great opportunity right now to take advantage of saving some money. It's a little bit less expensive right now to borrow money. And if you're looking to purchase a house, or if you have an interest rate over 4, or you're paying private mortgage insurance, now's a great time to have someone like myself take a look at your mortgage.
Well, and that's why, if you're not already, follow Dan on Twitter or Facebook, or just Google him, and you can stay up to date on what's going on with him. So on Twitter, he is at Dan Keller, MKG.
MTG Mortgage.
MTG, sorry.
MTG.
Yeah, not MKG. I don't know what that stands
MTG. Mortgage abbreviated.
Yeah.
Dan Keller, MTG. Yeah, and I post a lot of stuff about mortgages and mainly what the market's doing, not necessarily about rates, but something else to watch. Watch the Dow, watch the stock market. It crashed. Took a huge hit. But what's unique is it's recovering. It's recovered or recovering, but the bond market has stayed put. We've kept our increases.
And for those that don't know why that matters, explain real quick bond market. How does that affect
typically
mortgage rates?
Typically it's bond market, stock market. When investors invest in two separate, either in stocks or in bonds. And after Brexit, a lot of money was moved into bonds, which caused mortgage rates to drop. A healthier bond market means lower interest rates, and we're seeing a healthy bond market. We're seeing the low interest rates, but we're also seeing the stock market recovering. So confusing markets right now. It's just a great time to take a look at your mortgage and see if you can save some money.
Cool. All right. Well, again, if you're interested, follow Dan. Pay attention to him. He knows what's going on. He follows this stuff day in and day out.
Yeah, every morning.
He's up bright and early.
Yeah.
Right with the birds chirping.
Yeah.
Right. Or even before. And you're paying attention to this stuff all the time.
Yep.
So if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out on Facebook Live because you're watching us there. Or because I have my phone open looking at questions. Or if you don't, feel free to reach out to us anytime after the fact.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Facebook. Cool. So that's done. Now we are going to go into more of the topic that we've been talking about all day. And we're talking about how traffic congestion is affecting home prices and how you can take, in my opinion, how you can take advantage of, when traffic does get bad, how can you set yourself up for success property value wise and neighborhood wise? And that's kind of what we're talking about today. So we had Mark Leth of the Washington State Department of Transportation on to go over that stuff. He was a great guest. My biggest takeaway from that was that, really need to pay attention to big events that are going on. They do a great job, probably some of the best in the nation, of explaining when and if things are going on. So let's talk about neighborhoods real quick, because neighborhood traffic is a big issue for buyers. So a big issue that I see is, as far as neighborhoods in Seattle goes, Ballard. Ballard is such a pain to get in and out of. You talked about it with Mark when he was on the air. And
is it because of the east-west?
It's east-west.
Yeah.
There's no main roads getting east-west. And they keep adding more and more density to Ballard. That's where they've changed the zoning. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to hang out. It's a great place to go out to breakfast or dinner or whatever. But it takes forever. And it's gonna, I could potentially see that long term, and I've been saying this for a while too, I could see that long term being an issue. And I've actually had buyers that I've shown them houses, they fell in love with the house, and then I gave them some homework, and I said, hey, go right now, it's middle of the day on a work day, drive around the neighborhood, drive to work, drive to